Welcome back to another episode of Key Factors Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Jones, and we are still powerfully powered by ReviewMyMortgage.com and just some new information coming to the market. We just launched LoanBot, which loan officers, you can get yours at loanbot.pro. But it's time to talk about a topic that has been brewing for maybe a week now or so. And that topic in itself is the NAR ruling of agency. Basically, the hammer was dropped on a county in Missouri regarding the representation of buyers agents and the sellers paying for that commission. So I've got some pretty awesome guests today that I want to share some opinions, some deeper thoughts, and different perspectives on this situation. And I will introduce them individually, and then I'll let them tell us about themselves. So I've got John Grof here to my right. John, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Doing well. And I've got Tori Summer. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
And then I've got Nacole Ricks. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So real quick, if you guys could tell our audience a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in the industry, and just fill in the gaps. John, you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So, John Grof, I'm with Option One Real Estate, and I've been in the real estate game since 2015. So give or take about 10 years.
Okay.
And, my experience level is being on high producing teams, relationship based business.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, man, I love playing music. Got 2 kids, 9 and 11-year-old, been married 13 years. And so they're, of course, my why, and just work hard and grind in this crazy market.
I love that. Now, if you don't mind telling us a little, are you more of a listing agent or a buyer's agent or both?
I'm a whatever I can get my hands on agent.
Like
but I mean, if I'm speaking from like, what do I enjoy doing?
Sure.
I like working with buyers.
Sure.
I bought 2 homes of myself, so I really enjoy the journey of taking people through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Listings, I like, obviously the compensation.
Sure.
But for me, it's not as fun, but
Makes sense.
the
Okay.
latter of the 2.
Tori, tell us about yourself.
Hey, so my name is Tori Summers. I am 26 years old, and I have been a licensed agent going on over 6 years now.
Okay.
I live in Bernie, so I do the Hill Country area, and I am mostly a buyer's agent,
Okay.
which is why this topic is so important to me, because this really, it could change the whole industry.
Sure.
Possibly, we don't know that, but it would definitely change my role. I do listings, but I'm mostly do buyers, and I do roughly 20 million a year.
Okay.
And that is buyers.
Get you some.
That's buyers.
Yeah.
That's buyers. I'm with Option One Real Estate, just like John is. And I have horses and a bunch of different animals.
Okay.
So that is why I do this, to support my very expensive hobbies. But I am very passionate about real estate. I feel very lucky to have found this industry, because honestly, I just kind of fell into it.
Sure.
I had no plans whatsoever to be an agent, but I can't see myself doing anything else.
Well, to your point, I don't think anybody grows up dreaming of becoming a realtor or a lender, for that matter.
Yeah, no one wakes up and says, I think I'm going to be a real estate agent.
Exactly.
I mean, especially me, because I didn't know I have no family members that are in real estate, loan, nothing.
That's actually a good thing, because you get all their business.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So,
Exactly.
Nacole, you want to tell us about yourself?
So my name is Nacole Ricks. I'm here in San Antonio. I service all of the state of Texas. So I service 5 large metros, all the way from South Padre Island all the way up to Houston/Central Texas. Don't talk to me about Dallas. That drives a little too far. I am primarily a listing agent. The first 3 years of my career, I specialized just in luxury listings.
Okay.
And then from there, now I do a lot of investors. So
Gotcha.
I do primarily Airbnb, short-term, mid-term rentals, flip properties, and then, of course, still a very big luxury listing agent in certain markets. In San Antonio, I do all listings are
Gotcha.
my specialty. So as kind of the opposite.
So we've got 2 sides of the coin. I like
Yeah.
that. Yes.
My passion is listings. My passion is the numbers. My passion is how much money can we sell this listing for?
Sure.
Getting the result that no one else can get. I started out as expired luxury listing agent. So basically, I would go in, the house would be completely expired, 2 years on the market. overpriced, built in the middle of nowhere, whatever. And I would turn it around in 7 days, 28 days in a market that was way prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it kind of just became my niche unintentionally. It wasn't intentional at all. So I've been in the business also over 6 years. Tori and I have known each other for, over 15 years.
Crazy. I think we've known each other probably more than 20 years. We were showing horses together.
That's cool. Very cool.
Crazy. And then we didn't talk for years. And then all of a sudden we're both in real estate at the same time without even knowing, and we're both thriving in it.
Absolutely,
it's crazy.
And we didn't meet in the same city. So we ended up in the same city doing real estate, but that's not where we met.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
She was living in the Valley and I was living in Bernie, and we met at a horse show, and then we just became super close after that, and the rest is history.
Well, that's pretty cool. And note to yourselves out there that are listening, if you own, operate, take care of horses, cattle, things of that nature, you might want to consider real estate as a contributor to supporting your habit.
Yeah, because it's very expensive.
So, Nacole, I have a question for you before we get into our topic. You mentioned that you started out in the luxury real estate sector, and for many realtors out there, that is their dream, to be a part of the luxury listing aspect of what we do. How did that transpire? Was it your sphere of influence? That's just what it entailed? Or you knew you were wanting to go into this market that way?
Absolutely not. Yeah, I did not know that. Just like real estate's not something you know. So again, Tori and I are very similar. We had no family in real estate, no experience with real estate. My parents didn't even own a home, no real estate experience.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of it is sphere of influence, but honestly, I chalk it up to God. I mean, he's the one that really took me where I needed to be, because when I got into real estate, I did not even want to do residential at all. It was not even a passion of mine.
Okay.
I'm a numbers-driven investment girl. Give me commercial, give me investment properties. And God said, no, you love helping people. Let me give you the best of both worlds.
Okay.
And he gave me an opportunity to be able to really serve people at a much higher level than the average person in the real estate industry, to be able to take that person from saying, I am dying to leave my house.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to move. I really cannot afford this anymore. I really am in a bad position, and fixing the problem and saying, okay, great, it's sold, and getting them a very large return. My average was around 20 some odd % over the average comps for that area.
Good.
So, it was 7 was the lowest and 43 was the highest I ever got anyone over what the neighbor sold for.
That's awesome.
And that was expired luxury listings. And I mean, in McAllen is very different. That's where
absolutely.
I started.
It's thriving now, my goodness.
It is. But back then it wasn't, right? It was a very slow market, and there wasn't a lot of buyers for luxury expired listings.
Yeah.
It was very much a custom home community. Everyone built their own home. Everyone.
And who gave you that concept to go after the expireds for higher priced homes?
So it wasn't me. Again, my sphere of influence came to me, and it was my very first deal. I was 2 weeks in the business, and he's like, hey, can you list my home? And I'm like, who are you talking to? I just got my license. I know nothing. Right? I have no idea what you're talking about. And so he's like, no, my house has been on the market for 2 years now. We haven't been able to sell it. It's in Los Venados, and they were clients of ours on the horse end. That's what I did before.
Okay.
So as far as that, he did know me very well. And he said, can you list it? And I said, again, I don't understand why me. And he says, because you're the hardest working person I know. And I said, well, God has a plan. So, okay, let's do this. So I went and researched every single real estate agent across the country. I spent an entire week watching video after video, article after article, just researching. And then I brought video to McAllen. So no other agents were doing video marketing, and no other agents were doing video tours. We did a full featured video tour of this property, and it sold in 28 days, double-ended, back in 2017.
And I love that, because I always say I've had a branch in Brownsville, and every time I would go down there, it's like, guys, we're bringing you technology that this demographic doesn't have yet. And I always say that the Valley is about 5 years behind what the bigger cities are doing in regards to technology, video, social media, Google ads, all of that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that makes perfect sense as to how that can transpire. Okay.
So then one person to another. That's how it happened.
Yeah.
And you're very much so a self-taught person in real estate. You really, in that area, didn't have a mentor. So you're very much so
So let's get into our topic today. This should be a good one because it is very opinionated beside the facts. And we've got buyer's agents. Well, we've got a buyer agent, both, and a listing. So we've got plenty of
every end
opinions,
of the spectrum.
absolutely. And you've got a lender here that sees both sides and can play devil's advocate at any time, any point in time. So let's kind of go over what happened with this verdict. So essentially, let's read some of this stuff here. So I've got the NAR, National Association of Realtors, verdict regarding buyer agency that resulted in a lawsuit of $1.78 billion, that's with a B, is a significant development in the real estate industry. And then we're going to go into a couple of, the verdict. The federal jury found that the NAR and some residential brokers, including units of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, liable for conspiring to artificially inflate commissions for home sales. As a result, they were ordered to pay $1.78 billion in damages. So it goes into the impact on practice. The verdict could change long-standing practices that have allowed real estate agents to increase commissions in tandem with rising home prices and mortgage rates, making housing transactions more costly for customers. Let me scroll up just a tad. Let's see if I get up there. There we go. So the plaintiff in this, it was a class action lawsuit, including sellers of over 260,000 homes in Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois between 2015 and 2022. These sellers objected to the commissions they had to pay to the buyer's brokers. The details of the conspiracy, let's see here. The accused parties were found guilty of colluding to maintain or influence high commission rates via NAR clear cooperation rules. Cooperation rules. So, and then the potential implications, the award damages could triple under the U.S. antitrust law, which would amount to more than $5.3 billion. So the premise of this suit in itself is sellers that had already sold their home got together, and I don't think that they got together. I think they were kind of reached out to by the plaintiff or the attorneys, and thus created this class action lawsuit of 260,000 homeowners that said, we feel like we were misguided, mistreated, and used and abused, basically. That in itself, that's big. That's pretty big. Let's start with the first thing, because I mean, there are many aspects to this that can affect multiple situations in our industry. We've got the buyer directly, the sellers, the listing agents, the buyer's agents, and a lot of people forget about it, but we have the market values of homes that could also be affected. So let's start with the easiest one, which is going to be the sellers. What are your thoughts? How do you think that the sellers will be affected by this? And whoever wants to start, just jump in that water.
Sellers are going to be affected significantly.
Okay.
There's going to be less buyers, right? I mean, number one, affordability is a huge challenge if you're adding that additional cost. But number two, sellers' homes are found with real estate agents. Like yesterday, I showed a house that was in the private MLS. We're going to sell that before it even goes to the market.
And you know what? I forgot to break down kind of what the actual suit is. And essentially, you've got a seller on one side of the transaction, a buyer on the other side of the transaction. And we know for a long-standing history, the buyer is not responsible for paying their representation, their realtor, for helping them through this transaction. It typically comes out of the seller's pocket. And that amount is normally 3%. You've got 3% on one side, 3% on the other. And what the sellers are saying is that they were almost forced or coerced to pay that 3% to the other party. So what they're, I guess, bringing to the table is sellers are no longer going to have to pay the 3% to the other party, thus leaving buyers without representation, so to speak.
Right.
Right?
Because from working, I know we're talking about sellers right now, and
Yeah.
I will get right back into that. But I work a lot with first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
That is the majority of my business. And to be quite frank with you, they would never have been able to afford me if they had to pay themselves.
And I like that you bring that to light, and we'll dive deeper into that on the
Yes.
buyer side,
Yes.
definitely.
So that brings me back to the sellers. Okay. So in the MLS, it's going to show the buyers, whatever the buyer's fee would be, 3%, 2%, 1%. It could be $1. Now, buyer's agents are going to be able to cherry pick the listings that they show, because they're not going to want to show a house that's $1 versus one that is 3%. They're just not going to do that.
So that raises another point. I'm going to stop you there for a moment, because I'm Mr. Devil's Advocate in this. So if that is the case, and you're not the first, and you probably won't be the last to say the truth, okay?
Right.
And what I mean by the truth is, if you're representing a buyer and your fiduciary responsibility as a realtor is to get them into the home that meets their wants and needs, if possible, needs first, wants, obviously, if you can, great.
Yeah.
But you're seeing things like an additional bonus to realtors to come see our house versus the other house, or some properties you see with a 1% instead of a 3, or a 2% instead of a 3, and you're bringing that straight to the surface that realtors more than likely will not stray the way towards the lower commission properties.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? We know it's human nature for it to happen, but is that something that you feel is not right?
I do not feel that it's right. I mean, the buyer at the end of the day is the one that's going to be living in the house. But this is also going to be opening a whole new can of worms if that's what it's going to come to.
Right.
There's going to be way more lawsuits. There's going to be
they've already been filed.
Whatever it's called when you take a buyer, I forgot. When you take a buyer to a house versus another one that you want to sell. Steering, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's going to be a lot of steering
Yeah.
going on if this is the case, and that's going to cause a massive amount of lawsuits. And I really don't think that buyers are going to be properly handled. I mean, if they're showing one house with 3%, they're even if this other house that has $1 commission fits them better.
Sure.
I can see the agents not showing that house.
Isn't that a sad thing?
And it is sad. It is sad. But, it's what we see pretty frequently now. I mean, there's houses on the MLS right now that only have, 1%, 2%, and they've been sitting on the market longer than other houses.
Right.
Even if they have more desirable traits.
So, that being said, does that not further implicate the realtors on the buying side as to doing something wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's human nature.
Yep.
I'm not here to be Mr. Saint.
No, 100%.
Right.
I mean, this opens a whole new can of worms.
It does.
Regardless.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more lawsuits on both sides, buyers and sellers.
Well, not just lawsuits. That could result in potential imprisonment if they get caught red-handed in a situation like that. Steering, they'll use somebody as an example.
Absolutely.
But okay, so we've talked about, how about anything on the seller side for you, John? What are your thoughts?
No, I'm listening, and I agree with y'all. I mean, if we're looking at everything from a whole, I think that's a way bigger conversation. But if we're specifically...
Yeah, we're going to go through the gamut of each one of them, and then we're going to bring it all together and mix it in a pot.
While y'all are talking.
Yeah.
You're talking, I'm having a chance to kind of think. And for me, it kind of boils my blood, because at the end of the day, I feel like all four of us sitting up here, we feel like we've got integrity.
Absolutely.
We've all been in real estate
long enough. Correct.
Yeah.
I can speak to myself. I won't opt in. I know I can say I've never had a TREC complaint. I've never been sued.
Same.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with that, I can say with confidence when I'm in my listing
Presentation.
yeah, whatever, that, I know what I'm talking about. I know that I'm riding the right line with my clients and with everything. So, at the end of the day, implicating something to this magnitude is so serious, because it's throwing everyone in the bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's my concern.
Is it everyone?
Well, other than, which I find is funny, because in the first paragraph you wrote, and so I know I'm going a little bit
okay.
different.
That's okay.
But see, what I'm finding funny in this is they've used some big names.
Yeah.
In the industry, right?
I mean,
when you're talking about Warren Buffett.
When you try and make a ripple in the ocean, you've got to go after the big shit.
You're going to start with the biggest
right.
ones
Well,
there
yeah,
are.
because you know what? Those guys can pay. Like, you can't sue someone that doesn't have any money.
It's true.
So they're not going to pick on Joey Smith over there in Podunk Town.
No, they'll get him last.
Yeah.
So, when I start reading that, I'm like, these guys been sitting on this idea for a while.
I mean, the lawsuit started a while back. So, I mean, this is not new. It's just the verdict is a surprise because I believe everybody thought it's damn near impossible to prove that there was collusion, conspiracy, anything like that when you have the seller literally sign the agreement that says you're about to pay 3% to the other party.
Yeah.
And as a seller, I think we have to take a step back and understand that sellers, buyers, none of them know what we do in our profession
Behind
and how it's supposed to
doors.
work.
Right.
So it's just one of those things that I can kind of see their side, but I also see our side way more.
Well, it's very one-sided at this point. Like in everything that I've read on the topic, the defense was
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Like, it wasn't a fair representation or a fair understanding of the other side of how we actually implement our business.
Which is sad because they're the industry leaders. So you would think that they would be sophisticated enough to do their homework and bring actual scenarios, maybe even buyers or listing agents that had experiences that were fantastic and said that they're worth their weight in gold type situation. Okay, so
I want to go back to the steering just for a second. Sure. So the fact is that as a listing agent, we go in and there are sellers that do not want to pay the full 6% or 7% or 8% or whatever we're charging. It's not always 6%, right? Like I had a seller who reached out to me and they were like, I am taking interviews this day, this time, pick a slot, it's 5%. Okay. Like, that's what you want to do. If I'm willing to interview, then I am already agreeing to that, right? It is negotiable. Then a lot of people say like it's the industry standard or we're trying to make it like fixed pricing, which was another issue, right? But the issue is it's not, especially in other markets like McAllen. They do 1% all the time. It's very, very common. And that's what agents like, we just say, okay, let's show the house, right? But back to your point, they sit for Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I've shown them. Yes. But you know what? Like my buyer wasn't interested or whatever in the case. But the issue is that there will be steering if this is the case. And on top of it, the sellers, we already talk about that. We already talk about it with our sellers and we allow them to make that decision, right? When they go, you know what? I only want to offer 2% to the buyer's agent, or I only want a 4% listing, or I only want a whatever. It's not about, well, I'm sorry, if you want me, it's going to be 6%. It's not like that. It's about the fact that online, it is going to show the buyer's agent what they are going to be paid. And your home, we're already pricing it at the top of the market. To be competitive, I would recommend you to match what the other realtors are selling homes for in this area. It is not me saying we are fixing pricing or anything like that. It's just, it is common sense. It's human nature. If you want this home to sell, period.
Incentivize.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely with that.
Okay. So we've talked about the seller's side of this. We've talked a little bit about the buyers, but we'll come back to that. I want to talk about the listing agents in this aspect. So you being one of the most predominant listing agents in our circle here, what are your thoughts on business moving forward? I think you mentioned that you're going to see less buyers in that situation. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Everybody has the internet. And we saw through the pandemic, starting March of 2020, that our sales didn't really stop. I mean, it just, what the heck?
They skyrocketed.
Exactly. And in many cases, they've already done research to show that the buyer found the home in many cases and not necessarily forced to use a realtor, but in many cases they were because they believed they could not get that home without a realtor's representation. So now you've got a lot of realtors that are making 3% for opening a door.
Well,
opening a door? It's not.
No.
My wife's a realtor, so just know that I'm playing devil's advocate here.
So our thing, so the pandemic, the market there, it was completely different. It goes way beyond just opening a door, because that is when you saw houses going 100,000 over asking. That's when you were seeing 10 plus offers. That is when you needed a buyer's agent to go to bat to you and to negotiate for you. Probably more. I mean, we have more.
Or was it more so your offer being the best and strongest offer?
Absolutely not.
I know. Absolutely not. Not necessarily. Okay. I mean, I had won so many offers. I mean, and we were not even the best offer. We were writing letters. I was staying in touch with the agent constantly. I mean, there were just so many things that went at it that, nobody sees behind closed doors to keep that momentum going. And I've had agents tell me, like, you're the reason why we went with this offer.
Yeah.
They were blatant with me. They're like, this was not the best offer.
No, it is a relationship business. And that is what we have, is relationships. And we also know how to read the room. Buyers, when they talk to the agent, they don't know how to ask the right questions to be able to get information that may or may not benefit the buyer.
Right.
And so that is our job. Our job is to dig deeper. And once we understand, okay, great, this is most likely the winning offer. This is what would win it. Do you want to make an offer that's a winning offer, or do you want to make another offer that may or may not be the winning offer?
Right.
So it's a lot more than opening a door.
So that being said, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But I continue to play the devil's advocate, because most of the transactions that are done by 10% of the agents.
Sure.
So you've got a
Absolutely.
90% gap of agents that are going through the motions, opening doors. And to be honest, I'm just speaking transparently, a lot of lenders are helping put those deals together.
Absolutely.
Let's just be honest.
And listing agents.
And listing agents. Absolutely. Yes. Behind the scenes, it's like, okay, this person doesn't know what they're doing, or they're inexperienced, or who knows, doesn't matter. We want to make the transaction work as well. So we're not going to shit on that agent. We're going to make the deal work, right?
It's all a partnership, honestly. Everyone in the deal is a partnership. So it starts out first with the buyer and the agent, and then it goes to buyer, agent, lender, and then it goes buyer, agent, lender, listing agent. We all have the same goal of closing on the house. But, do you think that most buyers know what an option period is?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Because
the internet
that
is real.
A lot. I've experienced a lot where buyers are like, what is that?
I feel, and this is genuine, I feel like we're not giving consumers enough credit.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is everything is
within the reach
of your hand. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're I think that the comparative analysis that was done in a podcast that I recently saw, and they were on the side of the realtors, but they were also honest in the sense that we think that buyers don't know anything, and that's just not the case anymore. We're almost playing a game that with old rules, if that makes sense. Almost to the point that when the 3% was established, realtors were still meeting face-to-face to get contracts done. They were hand signing contracts, et cetera, et cetera. They were, done through fax machines, things of that nature. And now we move forward and everything's DocuSign. Zoom, same with us. We meet with our customers on Zoom. It's one of those things that I just feel like we don't give buyers, consumers, anybody enough credit. So there was another piece to the selling side that I wanted to bring up, and it had to do with the concept of people listing their home for sale by owner versus with a realtor, right? So in that case scenario, if let's say they have a price tag of $400,000 that they're trying to obtain, and if a listing agent gave them a call and said, hey, your house has been on the market for, 4 or 5 months. Are you really wanting to sell this home? Yes. Okay. Well, if you pay me 3%, would you be willing to still take the $400,000? No. Okay. So if somebody came to you and offered you $380,000, would you take that offer? Chances are they probably would. So what is the difference there between having representation that would thus sell the property faster, we would assume, versus it's sitting on the market and you just getting a lower offer that nets the same, but it will take longer.
Well, that brings up your point about the commissions inflating the prices.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're inflating the prices, right? Those commissions are set there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We do so much behind the scenes. We talked about this before, is like a lot of consumers, it doesn't matter if you're a buyer or a seller, as an industry, we are not understood as realtors. Like we're not understood of what our importance is, what our job is, what NAR does, like so many different things. And in that case, it's one of those very important things that they don't understand where that money is going, how much we spend on it, on photos, on marketing, on Google ads, on Facebook ads, on our time, gas, going back and forth, staging the house, the staging equipment, everything.
Cleaning the house.
I have washed dishes.
Mm-hmm.
I have scrubbed baseboards.
Now, mind you, we're talking to top producing agents here. We're talking to the extraordinary, not the ordinary.
Not mediocre.
You get what I'm saying? And it's there's only 1% of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
That's true.
It's the 80-20 rule.
It's 90-10 at this point.
90-10, yep.
Okay.
10% of the agents are doing 90% of the work.
Correct.
Over and over and over.
Right. And that is the part that I'm trying to bring to light a little bit more, because we can only speak from our perspective, but we can give opinions on the rest. And what I mean by the rest is that 90% that essentially is probably the reason why these suits came about, to be honest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can we all agree on that part?
Absolutely.
So that being the case, how do you justify that?
I also think part of this, and this is just me speaking out loud, I'm not sure, but I don't think that the sellers were properly instructed or, forced to understand what the listing agreement was. And
260,000 of them?
I don't think that they were, I don't think they understood what they were signing. I don't think they understood.
As far as the contract goes.
Yes, as far as the contract. I don't think they understood, like, okay, well, 3% goes here and 3% goes here.
I honestly, again, you got to give them more credit. No, okay. I think that they did understand and they found an opportunity to make some money.
A loophole.
Let's be honest.
Help them come to the conclusion
and put that together.
Feel
like a victim.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's just all keep in mind, at the end of the day, the only winners here are the lawyers. Let's not lose sight of that.
For sure. I agree 100% with that. Same as if you were to get hit by a car and have an attorney, they're going to get their 33%.
Yep,
right?
At a minimum.
And then you're going to pay the medical bills and then you get your check.
Yep.
So same concept with this. That's something that we can't control whatsoever. It is what it is. If somebody approached you and said, hey, this happened and it happened to 289,000 other people, would you like to be the 290 whatever person, right? That in itself is, again, something that we cannot control, nor can we, I don't know. It's tough to even bring that into the picture simply because it is what it is.
Right.
Now we have to deal with these repercussions, but we can give our opinions on what we think about that, what we think, how it's going to change the market, how it's going to change, like you were saying earlier. And I'd like to get into that now, actually, is what do you think it's going to do to the market in regards to when you have a listing and your sellers are unwilling to pay a commission to the buyer's agent, what that's going to do to that home?
I'd love to answer that question. I want to give a backstory that just happened a month and a half ago.
Okay.
I didn't mention this earlier, but I am a federal political coordinator for the National Association of Realtors.
Look at you.
What that means is I'm a liaison between the National Association of Realtors and U.S. Congress.
Okay.
So whatever bills come up that we identify as the National Association of Realtors, which is our organization that represents consumers and realtors that would affect the real estate industry, they put work into, right? What is that? Making sure that whatever words are put in there, that the actual outcome of the bills, either they're totally shut down or the outcome is beneficial or not going to hurt us as bad as what it would have hurt us if it was not for an NAR. Okay. So with that, there was a bill that came out a few months ago that was being passed basically because senators and congressmen did not understand the meaning of it. Neither did consumers. I know I'm going against everything you're saying that consumers are educated, but if you're looking at congressmen and senators along with all consumers practically, misunderstanding a bill that would completely destroy the real estate market within 20 years. All trying to vote for it. So again, though, it's presented in a way that it's going to help you right now, which exactly what I think that happened with these sellers, right? This is going to help you right now, not looking at what's going to happen in 20 years. And so with being in the position that I am and being in the industry as a career, we have to look at, you know what, maybe it's a little harder today than what it could be, but like it's going to keep it stable for the next 20 years. So I'm willing to put in the hard work right now. And so with that being said, it's not always about the consumer not having the ability to understand, but when the media and everyone around them is sitting there going, yes, it's the right thing. Yes, it's the right thing. Where are they getting the non-biased information from to be able to understand what truly it's going to affect them in 20 years? And
okay, so devil's advocate. Where do they get the unbiased information? That's a tough one because regardless, you've got the media pulling them one way and you've got realtors pulling them another. And on the token of unbiased, the realtor, and this is hypothetical, is saying I have your best interest, but at the same time, if they are short in regards to, let's call it cash to close because of closing cost, how often do they say, you know what, let me drop my commission and give you some? It's very, very rare.
Really?
I'm telling you, it's very rare. I'm on a lot of transactions to where it's like, don't you ask me for my commission.
I, as a buyer's agent, do it all the time.
Yeah.
Probably why you're also a top agent. Does that make sense?
Time. There's been deals where I walk away with no money.
Yeah.
Totally get it.
Absolutely.
Totally get it.
No money.
Same here as a lender.
Yeah, exactly. Because we are the, 10% that have our client's best interest in mind.
Yeah. But do you see where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, where is that unbiased information? Well, technically, you can find it on the internet, but you're also going to get pulled one way or another unless you're reading the actual law or bill that is passed. But then it has to do with interpretation of that bill.
I completely agree that it is all about interpretation depending on who's reading it or who's talking about it. But at the same time, an organization who is set out specifically to protect consumers, right? To create a real estate industry that is stable. I mentioned this earlier was that, the real estate industry accounts for 1/3 of the economy in the United States. So if you're looking at the stability of buying and selling homes, there's already so many challenges the last 18 months or so. With doing so, let's just add some more challenges that's going to cause it harder. We were talking about, you came back to me about the, how is this going to make it harder to sell? Well, it's going to make it harder. This is one way. And at the end of the day, sellers have a choice to negotiate whatever commission that they are willing to pay. That's always the choice. But now the issue is going to be that if the neighbor next door did not offer a buyer's commission, finally sold their home, 9 months later, 12 months later, and it sold for less than what it's worth, because we know as professionals in the industry, every single day it sits in the market, price goes down. You get to a point where you actually make less money than what the home is worth because of the time on market.
Oh, sure. Taxes, payment, all of the utilities, everything else that comes along with owning a home.
I completely agree with the carrying cost, but not just the carrying cost, the actual value of the home.
Perception value,
So what happened was we just bought a house. It was marketed at $525. We bought it for $381.
Okay. Yikes.
That's in today's market right now.
Yikes.
It was on the market for 2 years.
What the hell was that listing agent thinking?
Exactly. But the point is it was on the market for 2 years. It appraised for $425.
So would you agree?
That's going to happen. Exactly. That's going to happen is that the next door neighbor is going to sell too low.
Yeah.
And then the comps are going to set out and say, that's now the new price.
Right.
And now this seller is not even going to have enough money to be competitive to pay the buyer's agent because now their home value is lower.
Sure.
Because it brings the appraised value down.
It would.
And that's going to affect everyone in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And they don't have access to run comps and things of that nature. But there's this thing that's in the back of my mind that's saying, hey, Mark, most realtors don't run comps anyway.
What?
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised when placing an offer how many times the agent takes advice from the lender in regards to what's the max they can go to. Okay, they're in multiple offer situation. And the question on my end, because as an investor, my wife's a realtor, we flip all of that stuff. I'm heavily engulfed in this game. Is it even worth them going that high? Have you even considered that? Or are you just trying to make a commission?
Right.
Does that make sense? And that happens so much. And it's happening more and more because there's limited inventory, higher rates, less buyers in the market that are willing or able to even go forward with purchasing a home at the moment, you know?
Every scenario is going to be different.
Mhm.
And I don't want to stray too far away from it, but how I can help kind of like solidify your comment is, so like during the pandemic when everyone was spending so much, like, you know, offering cash, right? And so I feel like all of us probably had some buyers that worked really hard to get to that next house, right?
Sure.
To sell their first house. They finally get a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 loan. And they have to sell their house to take that equity to buy the new one. That's pretty common, right? To get to that next step. But then you get Big Jingles McGee from California.
Jingles McGee.
Yeah.
Good old boy.
So trying to lighten the mood, like, you know what I mean? So, but you know that we've had those scenarios. I mean, I had dozens of them during that time, and it got tasking. I'm like, when is this going to end? I just want to go back to like normal stuff, right?
For sure.
But I felt so bad for my buyer
That had to
because that
overpay.
worked so hard to get to where they can, but they didn't have a glimmer of hope. Like we're just getting shot down because these people are coming in with cash, right?
Right.
And so I'm going to go on the flip side. How I validated someone paying 30, 40 grand over. I never had someone or never advocated for someone to pay that much.
Right.
Because I actually was in that boat and I told them, I was like, well, if you're not going to live here for like, is this your forever home and you just love the home? If in your heart, you're willing to pay whatever you want for this house, that's a different story. But if we're looking at the investment value, the equity value of this, we got to take a step back and let's talk about this.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is another sign of a top agent, because instead of just looking at the home and the dollar signs, he asks the right questions that would lead to an answer that he could then stand behind. If you are calculating the break-even point based on what your buyer is telling you, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But if your buyer says, no, I'm probably going to live in this house 2-3 years, then you have a fiduciary responsibility because you've got all the data to say, okay, as long as you know, you're more than likely not going to recoup what you put into it. So as long as you get the memories out of it, great.
What's the other option? To rent, right?
Correct.
So
or to find another house.
In this particular client, I won't go into details so I don't draw it out, but they moved from
We're
Washington.
good.
They moved from Washington, right? And they ended up moving back. So within a 3-year time frame, exactly what the fear or what that conversation would allude to. Like, he ended up going back. And he actually profited going back. So I'm like, all right, I did my job, right?
Works out.
But coming in down to the house here, you know, his other option would be to rent. But what are you spending a month? $2,500, $3,000 a
if
month?
not
Whatever.
more.
And he was there for 3 months. So I'm not going to do the math. I'm bad at it. But
I mean, and that goes
multiply. That validated him spending 40 grand over, bringing the cash, able to win it, because he was already going to throw that money out anyway.
John, $90,000 is what the guy would have spent on rent.
Yeah.
So I have.
So he's still winning.
Yeah.
So he's still winning technically.
And that was an interest only payment too.
Yeah.
You know, paying rent. But I have a quick little story about back when we were in the COVID market.
Sure.
So I had buyer clients, and we were looking for a very specific property. They wanted to build a horse training operation, which means a big barn, an arena. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that go into that. The soil, the fencing, so many more things that people realize. Like that kind of, a lot of agents don't know what a horse property is. They see acreage and they're like, it's horse property. Absolutely not. So, we had a very specific thing, and we were looking for probably 7 months. So we were looking prior to the pandemic. We were not finding anything. We looked and looked and looked, and we just didn't find anything that was fitting the bill. So, of course, the perfect property comes on the market in the midst of the pandemic. We go to see it. And I actually, they were at a horse show. So
Okay.
I went and looked at the property by myself. And I was like, guys, this is it. Like, I'm telling you, this is it. They believed me. They trusted me. And I was like, we're going to have to go over quite a bit.
Mhm.
You know, we ended up going 100,000 over.
Okay.
And we had to do an appraisal waiver because I was like, guys, this is the only way more than likely that we're going to get this
Right.
property. And I knew what they wanted, and I knew that this was going to be a forever place.
Sure.
And this was everything. So I justified it.
In addition, you were able to lay out both sides of that coin.
Yes.
I mean, in all honesty, your scenario, how difficult is it to find that property? Pretty
Exactly.
difficult.
It is.
right?
And also, let me tell you, this was a VA loan.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This
Okay.
was not a conventional loan.
Gotcha.
So it was between me and another agent that had a conventional loan.
Mm-hmm.
And they went with me because of the communication
Sure.
that I had and everything of that nature. So I was already on pins and needles because I was like, oh my gosh, like my clients haven't seen the property. We only have a 5-day option period.
Oh, yeah.
We went 100,000 over appraisal, like all the things. So I took them over there to see it, and they're like, "Oh my God, we love it! Like,
This
this
is
is
the one."
perfect." Whatever. I had a feeling it wouldn't appraise, which is why we did the appraisal waiver. It appraised.
Okay.
It appraised 100,000 over asking,
Very cool.
and now they have built their dream facility.
See, that's a success story.
Yeah.
And it is because you do the research, you do your legwork, you present the facts to them without the opinion. Then they ask for the opinion, and you can articulate that properly to them, you know? Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. And I want to ask a question, and I'll ask of each of you, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. So if the buyer agency on realtors to the buyer is potentially going away, or we'll not say it's going away, but let's say 50% of Americans decide when I sell my house, I'm not paying any buyer's agent commission. Okay. Do you believe that the buyer will be able to pay? That's number one. And do you think that they will, let's say that they are able to pay, do you think that they will find the value in paying an additional 3% for that representation? And the reason why I ask this is because on the lending side, we damn near can't lock a loan without charging to get rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you got great credit, you're putting 20% down, but I still have to charge you 2 points. That's just what the market is doing right now.
Yeah.
If they're having to pay 2 points for this rate, and then their down payment, then inspection, then this, and we live in a city to where the average income is combined like 70,000.
If you're lucky.
Correct. What does that do? What are your thoughts? So who wants to start?
So I'll go ahead and
Let's
start
be
this.
honest.
Okay. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
My clients would not be able. My clients couldn't pay me.
First-time home buyers.
First-time home buyers. I use the hell out of that down payment assistance program.
Sure.
So if my clients are having to get down payment assistance,
Mhm.
I know they can't afford me.
Right.
I don't know if afford me is the right word.
That is the right word. Let's be honest.
And
they can't afford it.
And they can't.
They
and
can barely afford to qualify for this home.
You've
You've got the finance guy. We're good.
Yeah.
NMLS number 500.
So, they would not be able to afford me. And that would change the way I do business drastically because,
that was
like
gonna
I
be my
said,
next question. Yeah.
I am mostly a buyer's agent.
Mhm.
I don't even know if I would be staying in real estate. I don't know what else I would do, but that is my passion. And I don't feel like asking them to pay me is fair because we all know that the seller is the one that's going to be walking away with the most money in
Correct.
this scenario, regardless of what it is, even if that's just a break-even point.
Mhm.
The buyers, they just can't afford it.
So you raised another good point.
Fair housing.
You just raised another good point. So essentially, the concept of, let's say they dropped it to 1%, $500, $1,000, $3,000, some kind of number that makes it a little bit more in line with the value that they see
Mm-hmm.
is valid, right?
Yeah.
Because if they saw the value as valid every single time, they would save for the 3% to get the representation before they save for the down payment, right?
Yeah.
If you as a top producing agent would consider getting out of the industry, changing industry, something, if that were the case, simply because it's been placed on the seller's side for so long, don't you think that almost makes that a little more valid?
Yeah, I do.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute. So if we don't include commissions in the appraisal, it's not there. There's no line item for commissions. There is for concessions.
Mm-hmm.
How do we believe that it doesn't affect the value?
It's going to affect the value when they're uneven. When one is paying and one is not, that's going to be the issue. Currently, it's not. I do not believe that it's affecting the value at all right now. We sell faster. They save more money on carrying costs. They get a better experience. They are able to actually get the guidance that they need. And yes, consumers are very smart. I have no doubt in saying that.
Don't wait, time out.
Contracts are complicated.
Sorry, guys. I don't believe consumers are very smart. I believe that they have access to what
the internet.
Need. Correct. I'm not. That's just. I think that consumers, layman, they're good at what they do in many case scenarios, but they don't know everything. Do they have access to it? Yeah. Just like we do. They do.
A dumb analogy would be like, I watch football on Sunday and I watch Tom Brady play.
Yep.
Arguably he's not playing anymore, but he was
right. I get you. Yeah.
Right. And I get mad at him because he throws an interception. I think I want to jump in there. That's bullshit. I can do better than you.
Good point.
Right?
I get it.
Okay, I'm not a consumer in this, but I'm a fan, right?
Correct.
I think I can do better than him.
Or you could at least voice your opinion on what he should have done, but never been in that.
I'm coaching my son's football. I know football acumen. I know enough. Do I know more than Tom Brady?
Hell no.
No, I don't. And do I think I can throw a football maybe 20, 30 yards? Yeah. But I can't throw as far as him. I'm not in his huddle.
Yeah.
I don't know how he trains to be so good as he does.
He trains.
So the consumer doesn't know. But the consumer doesn't know, like us three. Like
what you do on the backside to know.
Sweat equity to become as good as we are. You invite us on a show. Sure. We're confident enough to sit
absolutely.
Here,
yeah.
Right? And so I think that's where our argument comes from is we feel this discredits us. This whole topic discredits.
It really does.
Is realtor.
I don't disagree with that.
It may not discredit every realtor, but the three of us.
And you know what? Let's go deeper on this because it's a good point that you bring up that can be kind of dissected. Does it discredit you, or does it make you validate your value?
Mm-hmm.
Simply because if it is customary for the sellers to pay, you can be a shitty agent. You're getting paid.
Yeah.
If the deal closes, no matter if the lender, the listing agent, doesn't matter who helps that deal along to the closing table, that buyer's agent's getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? So now, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, okay? I just want to play the devil's advocate again. If they're now being forced to go, okay, if you think that your buyer is worth it, pay for it. No big deal. But me as the seller, I'm not paying for it. And we don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm just playing the devil's advocate of, you mentioned it's lowering our value. But is it, or are they just moving it over? Because essentially, the whole time, they could have negotiated that down. The whole time, you could have given discounts. The whole time, all of these things are totally possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of who's paying for it that makes it valuable.
Yeah.
Is it a perceived value? Is it an inherent value? Because we assume that the seller's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think at the end of the day, as long as our pay or our compensation is able to be fluctuated,
sure,
there's always going to be this argument, right?
And I have to agree.
And so let me go kind of out of the space for a second. Like, I'm the type of advocate that, like, when I hear stuff like this, because, like, I've got a pretty large mortgage, like my monthly, what I have to keep up with, I would have never been able to afford it if I wasn't as good as I was at my job.
Sure.
And do that. This, this really concerns me because if it affects, it'd be like if you're employed at your big executive at a company, right? And you're used to making $150,000, $200,000 a year. And you walk into the office and they're like, oh, John, you're doing just as well. You at your job, but starting next year, you're only going to make 75,000. Like in the higher scheme.
Another good point.
So we can try and validate all of their sides of the story and maybe some points. And yes, but at the end of the day, how many realtors are going to be affected by this to keep up with what they've worked so hard to get to? And I know I'm going
No, you're not. You're not.
But when I start hearing these things, this is where my mind goes, because at the end of the day, okay, you're trying to be for the people over here and worry about them, but you're really impacting a whole nother group of people's ability to do that. And again, I don't want to keep on beating the nail on the head, but discrediting. You're basically, what they're telling me is, okay, well, if I'm used to making X amount of dollars every year because I do a certain amount of units or a certain amount of production, I'm still going to have to do that, but you're going to pay me less.
Based on, now they're not saying they're going to pay you less. And that's kind of what I have to keep going back to is because that perceived value of, like you mentioned, the story about somebody executive that goes in, he's making $250 a year, and now they're going to drop into 75. Well, if he's got the value, bet your ass he's not staying there.
Yep.
He's going elsewhere to get his value.
Yeah.
So in this case scenario, if all of a sudden sellers are no longer paying commissions, does that lower your value? Or then do you have to justify your value?
But who is going to justify?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Who's going to educate?
It should be the buyer,
the consumer.
Right?
Who is going to stand up with the marketing cost? No, we don't have that kind of money. We don't make that kind of money. The average realtor in the United States makes $60,000 a year.
We're not talking average.
So, but we're not talking about this is impacting a lot of people.
Sure.
John is saying, yes, it's impacting a lot of people. The average income is $60,000.
Yep.
That's the average agent. I'm not saying that every agent's amazing, but you know what? Those are households. Those are families, right? Okay. So at the end of the day, we are talking about an average income of $60,000.
So let's bust this nut open too. $60,000 as an agent. Dissect it. Let's take 60,000 divided by 3% minus X amount of commissions. How many closings?
That's not it, though.
That's we're just talking.
That's
raw
not
numbers.
it. We don't make 3%, Mark.
Oh, I said minus commissions, minus cuts, all that jazz.
I think also
because I have a lot of agents that I've worked with in the past that are part-time and still making 60 grand from the real estate side and still making 60 grand from their normal job. And you're shaking your head, yes, because we know people like that, right?
Yeah. But they could also be making more, probably,
if they went 100%.
If they went full
100. I agree.
Way.
I absolutely. I'm an advocate for buyers. You need to be working with a full-time agent always.
Yeah,
why?
absolutely.
Because I'm not about to do the buyer's agent's job.
So people, I think the perceived thing right now for agents, the most people look at agents and be like, you just open doors. Like that.
Oh man.
We have so many, like even as a buyer's agent.
That's the scary part in this.
Yeah. I have marketing costs. I have office costs. I have the cost of running my own business. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
That is a very big bill to pay every single month.
Sure.
That's just to keep my business running. That's not necessarily bringing in new clients.
Sure.
Or
to pay your mortgage or to pay your car payment or to pay
for the horses, that doesn't include any of that. Yeah. That is just to have a business.
So question, if let's say the market was originally set up to make 2% to buyer's agents, 2% to listing agents, would you not be in this business?
I think I would still be in this business.
I think you
would
all
just
would.
Have to work harder.
I think you would. I think
probably
you all would still be in this business. And I find it, I don't know, almost as if with this scenario, consumers finally found a way to stick it to us. And what I mean by that is, let's be honest, okay? For the past, 6 years, we've been doing damn good.
Good market.
We cannot deny that. And you've got friends. We post on social media because that's how we get a lot of business. But at the same time, the onlookers who are not in our industry see that and go, okay, he's living in $1 million house, driving a $100,000 car. He's got a Rolex watch. He must be doing fine. Right?
Right.
are we making too much money? Or is it an example or proof of how good we are at our job?
It's about how much work we do.
Right? That's
so
what
if I
believe.
went to a 9-to-5 job, I would make appropriate for that 9-to-5 job. I do not work a 9-to-5 job. Tori does not work a 9-to-5 job.
No.
John, Mark, none of us work a 9-to-5 job. We don't get to turn off our cell phones and go on vacation or go to our baby shower or go to our wedding. Our phone is on
all the time. We answer calls at 10 at night.
Or later.
Or
You're
later,
All three of
correct.
us were talking last night.
Yeah, that's exactly
we
right.
were. I mean,
About
like,
this topic.
yeah. And then first thing in the morning, my phone starts ringing, 7 o'clock.
That's right.
It
doesn't stop.
You can't just walk away from this job.
Right.
It is a full-time, all-the-time job.
Right.
It's not like a 9-to-5 where, you leave and you're done for the day.
I agree. 100%.
Absolutely not. I mean, so there's a lot of hours that go into it. And the average consumer doesn't know what all we do. You know, I don't think, because we really don't have like a job description that they
It's whatever
could
it
understand.
takes.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Let's be honest. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It is whatever it takes. That's the job description.
And
so
I
no,
think
we're not overpaid.
And I think that motto is encompassed or adopted by those that love what they do, are good at what they do because they love what they do,
Are passionate about it.
passionate about it, and that's what leads them to become top producers, etc. It's just not the whole market.
And that's
right?
the sad thing. Like, I've talked about this maybe to John. I don't know. I know I've talked to several realtors about it, but I find it frustrating that all of these agents came on in 2020 because they thought, oh my God, it's so easy to sell a
Just
house.
agents. Shit.
I think,
You know how many lenders there are?
like, I think that there needs to be maybe a more rigorous schooling or process for someone to become a realtor. Or, if you don't do this many units in your first year, this, whatever,
Right.
you're out.
But
Like,
unfortunately, that's not the case. You
I
are.
know.
I almost wholeheartedly agree with that because, again, being a lender, being a branch owner, I deal with a lot of conversations that I have nothing to do with in regards to, hey, we've got to solve this deal. A loan officer comes to me, and then you reach out to the buyer's agent, and they don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute.
And
how much are you getting on this deal?
Let's flip the script on that too. Okay. And this is no offense to John or Nacole, like at all. So do you know how many times the buyer's agent is doing the listing agent's job because this is their first time to ever do it, so they're walking them through everything. So the listing agent took pictures, put the house on the market, and now they get an offer.
To your point, I don't know if it's most, I'd love to see the stats on it, but how many listings are listed with their friend, their relative, etc., that don't do shit in the transaction.
So
We've been there. We've been there.
So then I end up doing twice the amount of work for for 3% instead of 6% if I'm doing all the work.
Yeah.
And so the listing agent just gets to sit there while I do everything for him, contacting everyone, the title company, making sure
You're right.
doing their job for them.
So let's talk about, we've probably beat this horse. It's not dead yet because this is still going on.
That's offensive to Tori.
I've been slightly offensive, but I knew
it's starting to get offensive to me.
Horse lives matter.
Horse lives matter. Horse lives matter.
It's okay, guys. I'm diverse.
Yeah.
So that being said, we've shat on that instance. We've gone through the sellers, we've gone through the buyers, we've gone through how it will affect the market. I want to talk about solutions to this. What are some solutions that would rectify this? And I want to hear from each of you because we've got 4 great minds here that, who knows, we could solve some world problems today, right?
So when you mean solution, do you mean to this lawsuit or do you mean moving forward?
I think both.
In the industry.
I think both. I think
that's a loaded question.
I think they go hand in hand though, because with something like this, something has to change.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Should it have changed sooner? We don't know. We don't care either because we're here and we've all profited from the way that it was and is, but something's going to change. If you were an advocate for realtors, which you are, if you were an advocate for the American dream, which you also are, but at the same time, we've also pretty much solidified the fact that if the buyer is going to have to pay for it themselves, probably not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right? What is a solution to this that would, I don't know, maybe affect realtors less, still allowing the buyer to have that representation and everybody continue to move forward? At the end of the day, we are not making the same kind of money this year that we made in the past several years anyway, right? Just because of the market, the inventory, rates, etc.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that statement.
It's true. That's just what it is. Our home sales are statistically speaking.
Yeah.
Yes. They're down. It is what it is.
The good realtors are still thriving. The good lenders are still thriving.
Correct.
But statistically speaking,
overall, I guess,
absolutely.
I guess I can agree with that. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I have to.
Well, I think there's a couple things going on. We're coming off of a pandemic that changed the trajectory of how we did business, right? And
I agree.
We can argue the pros and cons of that. In a really what's bad about the pandemic, the good thing came out. A lot of people made a lot of money, right? I mean, the monetary value of that was good.
Sure.
But the negative was, things, increased, inflated,
everything
higher than it should be. So
Absolutely.
So I guess coming out of that and then coming into these issues, I think that the mindset of the realtors, like us three up here and other professionals like yourself in mortgage lenders, we've got to be the example. And I think that, and I'm guilty of it too, in the earlier years of not educating myself, when whether it's Trek or NAR or stuff like that, they ask you to be involved or they ask you to contribute or whatever. And whether you contribute or not, but I think that we can't turn a blind eye to what's going on. When you read something where there's, 200,000 people, whether it was legit or not, they're probably mail outs, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever it was.
They've got a strong stance, and
not only a strong stance, they
won.
ruled.
We talked about this as far as, obviously if you read any story specific to this NAR topic, it does not really show that there's a strong defense on our end.
We know that. So now let's talk about the solution.
Yeah. So
going back to the solution. So let's say John Grof has been knighted as the advocate for how we move forward. Yeah. What would that look like?
Yeah. So
there's no wrong answers here.
When I hear this, it's a very broad question in my mind, because my mind goes a lot of different ways. Individually, I look at where's my value, what my value proposition is, where does my business go from here? And I think a lot of different things. That's not going to be for every realtor though, right?
It should be though.
Yeah. So
this
cowboy hat's not just a prop.
Yeah.
Like I love doing farm and ranch, right?
He's a cowboy.
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah. Howdy, y'all.
How do we all get up here being cowgirls and cowboys?
I know, exactly. Like, how did you plan this? Like, I don't understand what's going on here.
Zing. But yeah, no, I mean, I think about this stuff. So there's things we can control and there's things we can't.
Correct.
And I use that saying a lot.
That's okay. So if we are talking about the things that we can control, what would you do moving forward?
I would start. I mean, this is a perfect time. Everyone right now should be doing their business planning for next
for sure.
year. So this is a perfect time to start thinking about it. So, whether you have to write down what you can control or not. So if I can't control like whether I'm going to get paid 3% or not,
right,
I need to start thinking about, well, how many more clients can I bring on?
Boom.
Who's my audience? And so I'm already thinking about that because
guys, that again is another reason as to why somebody is a top producer versus not.
And you also need to calculate, in my opinion, how many deals do you need that are at 3% to make what you're used to making versus
there's a lot of agents that I work with and have worked with for years that say, I don't really focus on the commission. I focus on helping the customer.
Right.
And when I help more customers, I make more money.
Oh, that's exactly true. I'm a very firm believer that what you put out, you get back.
Yep.
That's how I run my business. That's why I end up giving my money away. But it always comes back to me.
Yeah.
It always comes back.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen that way for everyone, but that is the philosophy. I mean, of what we're here on this earth to do, in my opinion. That's just kind of how this works. You put out good vibes, you get good vibes back. You rid yourself of all the negativity. Guess what? You might live a good life type concept.
And it might not be immediate.
No, nothing is immediate, y'all.
Exactly.
Nothing is.
You know, of course, we would like it to be, but it's not always immediate.
Yeah.
So now, Tori.
Yes.
Miss Advocate, you are now knighted the HBIC. You know what that means?
High bitch in charge.
Head bitch in
Head
charge.
bitch in charge. Okay,
highest.
Of real estate and the advocacy for it. What would you suggest moving forward to make this copacetic for all?
You know, this really is a hard
there's no right
question.
answer.
I mean, I honestly haven't even thought about a solution to this because I feel like the way I run my business is probably how I'm always going to, is I'm going to put my clients first, no matter what that is. And, you know, I'm never going to steer one to a property that has 3% versus one that has 1%.
You might swear a little in the car.
I mean, I might have a mini stroke while I'm driving over there, like, God dang it. But, you know, it's just a twitch. It's just a twitch. But I'm always just going to have my client's best interest in mind. And I'm really going to try to stay more up to date with NAR and TREC, because that is something I feel like I have completely missed out on. I'll be honest. I don't ever pay attention to anything that's going on with NAR TREC, and I should. And I do want to become more involved with that because I want to be in this industry a long time. I mean, I'm 26.
Yeah.
I have a long time, hopefully, to be in this business. And I really do want to make a difference in the industry as a whole and to help clients. I mean, I feel like a lot of agents do not have their clients' best interest in mind, and that disgusts me. And I see it happening over and over and over, and there's nothing that I can do about it right now from the position that I'm in.
Makes sense.
So if I could somehow get in a position to leverage that, I would love to do so.
Now, before I get to you, Nacole, you brought up something that I want to ask, and it's totally hypothetical, but with all this stuff going down with NAR, two-part question, I think. You've got NAR, who controls all of the MLS, all that good stuff.
Everything.
Yeah. Do you think that that's fair? Do you think you'll see others popping up that kind of make it a little bit more accessible to many more? Because you already have, what is that, Redfin that left them?
Yeah.
There was 5 brokerages.
5 of them that left. And so
essentially it's one of those things that, is this a cult that owns everything and has been controlling everything?
No, you don't have to be a member of NAR in
you
several
do have to open a NAR lockbox.
Right. No.
And
so
hold
I'm saying,
Realtor with the little R on your name.
the copyright, but it's not in every state.
Okay.
There's a lot of states that are not like that I've learned, and I didn't realize that actually until this verdict came down.
Sure.
I've been reading a lot of stuff, and I realized that not everyone has to be a member of NAR. It's not the case in Texas. You have to
gotta be.
So that goes hand in hand with TREC, which is the Texas Real Estate Commission.
Yep.
I don't really know. I mean, because I'm not that involved with NAR, to be honest with you. I would love to think that they have our best interest in mind, but you know, it's also super disappointing to see
lose.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like they came really unprepared, and they didn't
and had plenty of time.
They didn't really have the realtor's best interest in mind, or maybe they did. They just didn't do their homework.
And that leads to the question of, do they have our best interest?
I would like.
You don't
to
have to
think
answer
so.
it. You know?
I mean, I would like to think so, but honestly, I don't know. And
it's tough.
if I could get in a position to where I could know that better and be more involved, I would probably have a different opinion of it then.
But Should I add in on that?
Absolutely.
Please, yeah.
So the National Association of Realtors, again, laws, right? So like a year and a half ago, the big 1031 exchange law came out. You know what I'm talking about, right? So basically they were trying to change 1031 exchanges to only be capped at 500,000, and that would stop a lot of investments coming here to Texas.
Correct.
So let's go back to, does NAR really have our best interest in mind? Well, Texas is a damn good market. It's a stable real estate market. It's a stable economy. So why is that? Is it because everyone's investing here? Is it because things are pro-consumer here? Is it because they're changing property taxes to eliminate the issues that we're starting to face now? Is it because they are working to keep a stable market here? So I'm going to go with, I really love the fact that we do have the requirement to be a member of NAR, that we do have that backbone, because there are other states out there that no, they don't have the ability to have the stable real estate market that we've been building for so long.
Valid point.
I also have something to, go on top of that. NAR is a big association.
Sure.
It's hard to keep track of this many realtors, especially, I know this suit wasn't in Texas, but how can you,
I know the answer to this one. Everybody's got a broker.
You're right. Everyone has a broker, but how present are some of the brokers?
And that's literally the problem.
Yep, exactly.
Okay? The broker created a model to which I've got to hire more agents, and I don't give a shit who. I just need more agents.
Keller Williams.
I'm not naming names here, but if you do one transaction a year, that's okay. I just need 100 of you.
Yeah.
And how is it possible to corral the
quality is not in numbers?
No, it's not. Never has been. Never has been. But that you're almost bringing up the point of, can NAR wrangle all these people? No, but they are supposed to be able to wrangle the brokers. The brokers are supposed to be able to wrangle their agents.
So maybe the brokers need to be held at a higher standard.
Maybe so.
I've got 5 points for you on that right here.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
So first of all, we actually talked about this in Austin a couple months ago regarding broker responsibility. And it's been a fight that's been for months and months and years and years and years. Like, it doesn't end. The issue is that how do you require brokers to train their agents better? How do you require brokers to mentor and have an actual, they shadow for 3 listings, which is something that's coming right now. Yeah. They're trying to push for them to have.
Yep. Appraisers have to do it.
And inspectors.
Same concept. Go ahead. Sorry.
So no, you're good. So basically right now, the law in Texas, again, we're talking mainly Texas here, but the law in Texas is that agents have to have mentor for 3 transactions. And it doesn't matter what those 3 transactions are.
Are you saying that's coming or that's here right now?
That's here now. But what's trying to come is 3 in every scenario. So 3 listings, 3 buyers, 3 whatever, which is what's trying to be implemented right now. The issue is, though, again, a lot of brokers are not present. Right. So then you go, okay, well, who cares if the agent is required to do these 3, because it's really only one small step to the big problem, because the big problem is that anyone can become a broker.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying I'm unqualified to be a broker, but I could go walk and get my license in a few minutes.
Because you've been along.
I think all 3 of us
theoretically, like in the Keller Williams model, because I was over at Heritage in portfolio for a long time, and I was also a team leader. I had Valor Real Estate for a while, and I had anywhere from 4 to 6 agents. And I'm not a broker, but to be a team leader and to be able to work in that capacity, you have to have your broker's responsibility.
Correct.
Right.
Which
a lot of brokers require that.
All the substance you need to understand that. Right. And so to the point of that, I mean, I'm sticking up for brokers like Keller Williams, where they're predominantly team focused,
team oriented,
right? And so when you have someone of that scale, thousands of realtors, I mean, that one singular broker with a brokers that big can't mentor all those people.
Yeah.
But if you build little armies around you, and each team leader has a broker responsibility, theoretically they are mentoring through those transactions. But
you're right, and the big corporations do require that, like EXP does as well.
Shit together versus there's a lot of brokers out there that are not even in the picture.
Right.
They're just letting everyone fly by the seat of their pants.
Instead of enforcing something like that, which I think would have been great to enforce years ago, simply because it makes you a better at your job, any which way you look at it.
Right.
Instead, they put together training programs that you have to pay to get into as an agent, as another way to make another revenue stream.
And then it's still not hands-on, which how do most people learn? I don't know. Hands-on, actual real estate experience. So I wrote down 5 different things that I would say that if I was the advocate, I'm going to change these things. These are the things I would go for. Number 1 is change the requirement for education. And that's for agents and for brokers.
Yeah.
I hate to be that person, but there's a lot of naive agents out there that know absolutely nothing about what they're doing. And it's hard for people who do know what they're doing to be in an industry where that's the other side, whatever side that is. So, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just the listing side or the buyer side, but the education requirement of actual hands-on, like I tell people, anyone who wants to get into real estate, do not go to a brokerage and pay for a team and do all of that stuff.
Right.
No, go for free and shadow an agent for a year.
No one is willing to do that anymore. And I'm an advocate. I'm a huge advocate for education. I'm not a huge advocate for, let's say, college, only because
I'm the same way.
I went to college for many years, played college football, the whole 9 yards, didn't graduate, but I've done fine for myself because the information is out there. Go learn it. If that's what you want to do, go bust your ass for free. Yeah. Then you will learn.
How many of us here went to college?
I went to college, never graduated.
Never graduated. I went for 2 years.
I'm a college dropout.
I
tried it a couple times.
I never
I thought
even
we were about
made
to
it.
sing the song from Greece.
I never even made it to college.
Okay.
I knew when I graduated high school, I was not going to college. That was not the track for me.
Yeah, but you were also riding horses and all that stuff. That's a lucrative game.
Oh, no. You lose your ass on that. Horses are
Until you don't.
expensive. I'll be honest.
My daughter rides horses, so I know the game.
Last year was the first year we cleared money.
Really?
Showing horses. Yep, absolutely.
So it's just a bottomless pit.
It is a bottomless pit of nightless sleep. And
but last year was the first year that we have ever cleared money on the horses.
Wow.
And this sounds bad, but it's because I was able to put more money into it. You have to spend money to make money is actually
and anything you do.
Absolutely true. I feel that way with the real estate industry too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
So regarding the shadowing,
Yep,
so like I would require, like if I were saying, you know what, these are the laws that are going to change, it's not a little course that you go to and you go to 180 hours and then you take another 90 hours or whatever.
And the teacher tells you the answers at the end, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, exactly. And like literally everyone tells you, oh, well, just pass the test because you're not going to use any of that information because it's true.
I literally tell that same concept. Correct.
So at the end of the day, people who like, how did you become successful? How did you get your first client? How did you do this? I worked my ass off, but that's because I also had a lot of business experience prior to coming into real estate.
Sure.
So if you don't have any business experience, if you don't know anything about it, go shadow an agent for a year. Make $0 for 1 year.
I don't think that's
7
possible,
days a week.
If you have a good mentor.
Wait, but John, they go to college for 4, 6, 8, 10 years. They take out loans for this shit.
Yeah.
And then they go.
That they can never pay back.
Yes. Yeah. So why is our industry different? Like it should be the same. It
has a lot to do with the barrier of entry into the business.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been saying that for years that there needs to be I think we need to be held at a higher standard to get into real estate. The fact that anybody can get their real estate license, quite frankly, is bullshit.
Yeah.
I do not think that there are people in this industry that should be in this industry.
Yeah, we can't just do a disc test. You know how many disc tests you know how many? I fail those damn things every.
You can't fail a disc test.
On paper, they're just like. Yeah, you
I
can't.
failed it, and you can't even fail it.
Well, you can based on the person that's giving it to you.
What?
Because they
Maybe
probably
what they were
want
looking
you.
for.
Yeah, exactly. They want you in a certain aspect.
How is your heart even beating right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so continue yours so we can wrap this up with a bow. You're good.
Okay, so then, we've got to now present the value to the buyers, right? Okay, so anyone who's looking to buy or sell, if this is the case, if this is where we're going with things and you want to choose to have a buyer's agent or not to pay for them, okay, then every single buyer and seller needs to go through a 30 to 60 hour course on what the heck is about to happen.
I'm all for that.
Yep.
Not the little, and I have to say this, there's down payment assistance programs out there that require, and yes, some agents do it for them, some lenders do it for them, and all of this BS, right?
Yep.
Like it still happens. So either way, whatever it is. And on top of that, it needs to be a thorough course, like a one with a freaking test at the end, where it's not just where, hey, highlight some things and it's multiple choice. No. They need to know what this process looks like. And then they can make an educated decision if they want to pay for legal representation. Exactly what happens in court, right? So an attorney is hired when they feel like that they are not equipped to represent themselves. Okay, great. Well, how did you come to that conclusion? Well, because there is a bigger understanding of what an attorney does than what a real estate agent does. And I'm not saying that we are attorneys, but we do write contracts and we do fill in those contracts.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
But you still can't write in that special provision section.
Oh, because we're not attorneys. I mean, these forms are promulgated by attorneys. Yeah, exactly.
For a reason. That's
so in that case, like we still fill in information which could cost someone thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, yes, you brought up some good points the other day, a few minutes ago. It's been such a long time. Anyways, so
it's been a long day, guys.
Is that, some people don't know what an option period is. Well, it depends on what segment you're talking about. Are you talking about first-time home buyers? Or are you talking about investors? That's a totally different scenario. Yeah. Are you talking about, is the seller understanding if it's 3% paid to this person, 3% paid to this person? Well, technically it's 6 or whatever percent paid to me, baby.
Broker.
Right.
It is paid to the broker, right?
So what about
it's not even.
What about this thought? And I'll finish with this. We'll talk about it and then we'll wrap it up.
Because I got two more.
Oh, bring it. Go ahead.
Okay. Commission changes. I think all the commissions need to change.
I think that's the one that we're getting to. That's kind of what I'm going to bring to the table, but go ahead.
And then the next one is I think there should be price fixing. Absolutely. This whole negotiation bullshit is bullshit.
I agree with that.
It needs to be fixed. It needs to be where we are paid a certain amount. Now, okay, maybe there can be a range to that certain amount, like an attorney, right? If you're going to go to an attorney for this, it usually costs between this and this, right? So it's not necessarily price fixed, but it's price range fixed.
That's true.
And that's exactly what needs to happen in our industry because a lot of agents don't know.
Let's be honest. You have plenty of agents that stumble upon their first $1 million listing and make $30,000 minus the broker fees. And whether they did the work or not, money's money. Is it fair money? We don't know. Who's to say? What it has been is going to change. We don't know what it's going to change to. I think those are great recommendations. My suggestion, which goes hand in hand with maybe a USDA loan or a VA loan, would it be beneficial to the buyer to be able to roll that in to their loan?
Absolutely.
I think that would be a great idea. And I was actually thinking of that. Is if the buyer, if the buyer had to pay the agent, if there's a way that can be rolled into the loan. Because
you've got VA funding fee that gets rolled into the loan, no questions asked. FHA, upfront mortgage insurance, rolled into the loan. USDA, same concept. And the VA, gosh, it goes all the way up to 3.6. I mean, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That being the case, I think one thing that you guys as agents need to do very quickly and in the open is do a great job of justifying either the 3%, the 2%, whatever it is that you guys are wanting to stick to moving forward. And we don't obviously know what's going to happen. But as you mentioned many times throughout this podcast, Tori, buyers don't know what we do. Tell them what you do over and over. Show them what you do over and over. Use video marketing to educate over and over to the point that
behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Because it's one of those things that they only see HGTV stuff, right? Until they go through the transaction. And by the time they're done, if that makes sense.
I sell butterflies for a living and my budget is $1 million. And my agent just walks me through houses.
They don't know. And I agree with you. They don't know.
Yeah.
I do believe, here's final thoughts. Okay. So I believe that there is kind of like with anything else, there's a mass group that kind of spoils it for the top producers that are doing the right thing, that are providing value to their buyers or sellers. That gives you guys a bad name. And in turn, maybe the reason why this suit came about in the first place, right? Because had there not been any kind of window door to step into, it wouldn't be a thing.
Correct.
So that being the case, I think commissions are more than likely going to change. The structure of how we do business is going to change. When, we don't know. But I do believe that we've got to find a way over and over to justify our value.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to make it so damn clear as to why we're worth X amount and what could go wrong if you're not in place.
If you don't use me. Yeah.
Correct. And I think there need to be scenarios brought to light over and over of the nightmares that people have gone through, the money that they've lost, the heartache, the headache, the homes that they've lost because there was not representation.
They don't know what they don't know.
You only know what you know.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I love that. And it's true. So that being the case, do you guys want to add anything? I think this was an awesome conversation, not necessarily a debate, which is good because we all believe kind of the same premise. We know that there's some rotten apples. We know that we have value to provide. We believe strongly that buyers need representation. At the end of the day, it's not open heart surgery, but it's pretty impactful when you're dealing with this level of the largest purchase you've ever had in your life.
Right?
The last
The
thing-
biggest
yeah.
financial investment that anyone makes in their life.
That's correct.
So, back to that point, we were talking about that earlier as well, and saying that, you know what, this is one of the largest purchases that anyone will ever make.
Mm-hmm.
And we are allowing in this situation as a community, right? We're not talking about realtors or NAR, anybody. This is a community.
Mm-hmm.
We are allowing now sellers, because they're going to have representation most of the time, to have the upper hand on every single deal that a buyer's not represented. And we think that that's now fair housing. We now think that that's going to be fair for a buyer to be able to be in a situation where they're manipulated, because the fiduciary duty of a listing agent is what?
To the
seller.
Absolutely.
So if that buyer tells me, oh my gosh, my sister lives next door, what is my obligation to tell my seller?
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Even
perfect
if
sense.
I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
My obligation is to do that. So at the end of the day, now buyers are either going to not say anything to you because they're going to be scared
Sure.
to say it. Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You're right.
I'll go ahead and say it.
It's okay that she said it 10 minutes ago, but now, no.
Yeah, no.
So, at the end of that, it's not okay for them to have this experience. There's already so many buyers out there that have had poor experiences, and we should not allow those few bad apples. And I'm not saying that, they're not out there. They are. They're in every single industry, though.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the top, 20%. 10%. And so with industries vary, but that's going to be the industry. You're going to have some bad apples and you're going to have the top 20 or 10%. With that being said, the industry doesn't shut down. The industry doesn't stop paying someone who has a business, a full-blown business.
The show will go on.
So, okay, why are we being treated differently?
The buyers are going to be drugged through the mud, and they're going to be taken complete advantage of without their knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Without them knowing. Like, that's
John,
exactly.
you got anything to add to this?
So what I'll leave you with is, number one, what I'm doing in my business is, this has been a great podcast, by the way. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Staying involved, staying informed, and taking part of whatever I can advocate to help. Same thing when we vote for elections.
President.
Yeah.
Exactly. So get involved.
Bring it back.
But beyond that, I mean, what's in my control? What I can do.
I love how we're all ignoring this right now.
Well, no, that thank you for that. And let's see here. So as we close this, I absolutely want to thank you guys for being transparent in this. It's not easy to give your opinion on something that you may or may not be ridiculed for.
Oh, for sure.
But at the end of the day, it's our opinion and it's based off of our experience. Okay.
As top producers.
Damn right. Okay. Damn right.
I had 2 more points.
Oh, go ahead.
I was on number 1, but I really,
I'll edit it in.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I've been more than patient.
I've waited for my turn.
I drank all my coffee.
Hey, it's tough having a podcast with strong ladies, huh?
It sure is. But no, so the other two things that I'm doing is I strongly encourage in our industry, you have to have a relationship base. We're all part of brokerages that may be providing us, some form of leads, right? Pay to play sort of speak or whatever. But I built my business from the ground in a relationship based business. And to that point that you were talking about is where we're trying to gain people's trust. Why are they going to use us? Nothing's better than that warm referral.
Right.
So lean into your past clients, keep them engaged of why you helped them in the first place and why they need to continue helping you.
Right.
In that database. And then I would just say, moving forward, you got to double down. Work ethic is huge right now.
Agree.
Like things in the past landed on our lap. That's not it. You've got to have a strong work ethic.
You have to work for everything that you have now. Not saying that we didn't before, but we're in overtime.
Who's ready for a thinner herd?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
all right, guys.
Thanks,
well, absolutely. Again, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for being transparent. Thanks for airing it out there.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. So
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. So guests out there or listeners out there, I hope you got what you were looking for in this. And I hope you have your opinions. So at some point, put your comments in the comment section. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this. If you're a consumer out there and you've got 2 cents to give it to us. At the end of the day, it's only 2 cents. It's not going to break the bank. So I will leave you with the following. We are in a market that is evolving. It's changing. It's constantly changing. And that is the only constant in our business. Things like these lawsuits that come about are indicators that change is on the horizon. And I don't think it's just our industry. I think many industries are going through changes, especially with AI, especially with how we easily access information, just like consumers having access to everything that we do on their phones, but unfortunately they don't know how to consume it and digest it and essentially filter it through as to what is true and accurate versus opinionated or being swayed one way or the other. I'm just hoping that the masses learns a little bit of something from this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.